In the world of sports, we love a good redemption arc. As fans, we can't help but root for certain players to overcome and redeem themselves of their past mistakes. One of the most famous examples in hockey is Steve Smith's redemption arc. On his birthday, he infamously scored on his own net, essentially causing the Edmonton Oilers to be eliminated from the 1986 playoffs, leading to the team rallying around this incident and winning the Stanley Cup the following year. Smith's redemption arc ultimately culminated in Wayne Gretzky giving him the Stanley Cup first after hoisting it, making for a scene straight out of a movie. And they say true redemption is when guilt leads to good, and I don't think that there's a player that embodies that quote more than the player I want to talk about today, boys. Born on August 15th, 1958 in London, Ontario, Craig MacTavish is well known as the last NHL player to skate without a helmet. Additionally, he is renowned for taking the memorable last draw in the 1994 Stanley Cup final for the New York Rangers, clinching their victory and ending the team's 54-year Stanley Cup drought. This is what you most likely already know about Craig MacTavish. However, there's much more to MacTavish's story than these well-known facts. In a shocking turn of events, right as Craig MacTavish was starting to gain traction in the NHL, right in the middle of his first 20-goal campaign with the Bruins in 1984, he would almost ruin his own life as well as many others, causing him to miss the entire following 1985 season. So today, boys, we're going to delve into the rise and fall and eventual redemption of Craig MacTavish, exploring the complexities of his life and career both on and off the ice. Craig's hockey journey would begin at the University of Lowell, playing NCAA hockey for 2 years from 1977 till 1979. In his first year, he really made a mark, scoring 26 goals and 19 assists in just 21 games. And the following year, he was more impressive, racking up 88 points in 31 games. Despite only playing 2 years of college hockey, Craig showed he had amazing hockey IQ. He was a great two-way forward, playing as well in his own end as he did in the opponent's. Plus, he was a dominant center. In his college days, he rarely ever lost a draw. This all made MacTavish a standout player, leading to him being drafted in the 9th round, 153rd overall by the Boston Bruins in the 1978 NHL draft. And Boston really did their homework on MacTavish, because he turned out to be a draft steal. Just 2 years after being drafted in 1980, he joined the Bruins and put up respectable numbers. He even played in 10 playoff games for the Bees. However, in the following years, Boston realized that MacTavish still had some growing to do, and his next 2 seasons were divided between the Bruins and the AHL, and his time in the minors paid off. By the time he reached 24, MacTavish seemed to have turned a corner. He participated in 75 games during the 1983 season, amassing 30 points, and things would just get even better in 1984. MacTavish was starting to break out now. More than halfway through the 1984 season, MacTavish was establishing himself as a top-tier two-way forward for the Bees. He was also starting to find his scoring touch, reaching the 20-goal mark for the first time in his career. At 24, Craig felt unstoppable. The world was his, and the sky was the limit. And maybe it was his newfound fame and success that gave him an aura of invincibility that would ultimately lead to his downfall. Craig MacTavish was poised to take on a more prominent role with the Bruins. However, 1984 would be his last year in black and gold. Sadly, on January 25th, 1984, Craig MacTavish made a fatal decision that would ultimately take the life of an innocent woman. Instead of finishing the 1984 season on the ice, MacTavish found himself incarcerated for causing the death of 26-year-old Kim Radley. On the night of the incident, MacTavish had been drinking heavily at the Golden Banana Club, which was located in Peabody, which is about 30 minutes out of Boston. Workers there reported him as drunk and loud before they stopped serving him liquor, causing him to leave. He then drove his car into the rear end of Radley's Pinto, about a mile down from the road. Police estimated he was traveling between 60 and 85 miles per hour when he struck the car, knocking it into a nearby parking lot, where it stopped on its side against 2 parked cars. On January 29, 1984, Kim Radley would pass away due to injuries sustained in the crash caused by MacTavish. He admitted to being under the influence of alcohol when he rear-ended Radley's car, sending it into a parking lot where it flipped after hitting 2 other vehicles. On May 4th, 1984, he pled guilty to vehicular homicide and driving under the influence of alcohol. MacTavish would receive a 1-year sentence and spend the entire 1985 season locked up behind bars. After being released in May of 1985, McTavish spoke about his punishment. "It's not over, and it's not behind me," he said. "So many things remind me of what happened in my terrible mistake, my fatal mistake." He would also go on to say how the parents of Radley, Hazel and Ronald Foote, would frequently meet with McTavish while he was in jail. "We felt this was something we had to do, something we wanted to do. We wanted to see if it would help us accept what happened. We had a question in our minds and we had to draw a conclusion. We both felt if we could talk with him, see how he felt, that it might help us with some of our problems," Ronald Foote said. McTavish would find the confrontations with Radley's family some of the most soothing of his entire life. He talked with the family for 3 hours in the courtyard of the prison, expressing his sorrow and shame after having caused the tragedy. "Sure, I was nervous, but I wanted to do it. It was something I had to do," McTavish said. The Footes wanted to emphasize their belief in forgiveness and stood behind McTavish's attempt to not only rebuild his own life, but help others avoid the same mistake. And this was the turning point in Craig's life. "It was definitely a turning point. It alleviated some of my guilt, obviously. I can't say enough about them. They were unbelievable. Just unreal people. They're a religious family, and I think their attitude towards it was being an act of God rather than my irresponsibility," McTavish said. Radley's family didn't want to crucify Craig McTavish. They didn't see this incident as solely McTavish's fault, as he was given a lot of money before he even finished school. During his sentence, McTavish also spoke to high school students about drinking and driving, a critical step as he had done it before. While McTavish was responsible for a tragic mistake, the Foote family forgave him, and he was later able to redeem himself by taking responsibility for his mistakes. McTavish paid for his crime by not only doing the time, but by speaking at numerous schools about the dangers of drunk driving, and by serving as an honorary chairman of Edmonton's Check Stop anti-drinking driving program. To this day, McTavish is still close to the Foote family, and has forged a bond with them. They would even send him cards every holiday and every birthday. In forgiving McTavish, Ronald Foote would go on to say, "I have a great deal of respect for Craig McTavish. He was a young man who made a tragic mistake, and was extremely sorry for it. I regard him very highly." McTavish was gifted a second chance at not only freedom, but also in his hockey career. Edmonton Oilers general manager Glenn Sather would take a chance on McTavish, signing him for the 1986 season. There were suggestions that Bruins general manager Harry Sinden, believing that McTavish needed a fresh start away from Boston, called in a personal favor from Oilers general manager Glenn Sather, a close friend of his. This arrangement involved Sinden terminating McTavish's contract with the Bruins so that Edmonton could sign him, providing him with a new, fresh start in Edmonton. Moving across the Canadian border to Edmonton, McTavish saw this as a chance to escape the media scrutiny in Boston. He could now concentrate solely on his hockey career and demonstrate that he was well worth the risk, despite his previous errors. Now, McTavish's start in Edmonton also marked the beginning of what he would become most known for. Despite wearing a helmet throughout his time in Boston, McTavish had practiced without one for a very long time. In 1979, the NHL implemented a new rule requiring all players signing contracts from that season onward to wear a helmet. However, there was a grandfather clause that allowed players who had played before 1979 without a helmet, or players who had signed a pro contract before the cutoff date, to continue playing without one. And as luck would have it, McTavish had signed his first pro deal just before this deadline. With his move to a new city offering him an opportunity to change his on-ice image, he opted to utilize the grandfather clause and start his time with the Edmonton Oilers without a helmet. This would symbolize the rebirth of the new Craig McTavish, a changed man. McTavish would go on to play parts of 9 seasons with the Edmonton Oilers, achieving remarkable milestones along the way. He hit his career high in goals with 23 in 1986 and his career high in points with 52 in 1989, amassing 155 goals and 331 points in 701 regular season games for the Oilers. McTavish also played a crucial role in Edmonton's dominant dynasty of the mid to late 80s, contributing 37 points in 113 playoff games and winning the Stanley Cup 3 times with the Oilers in 1987, 1988, and 1990. In an additional display of leadership, McTavish would also serve as the Edmonton Oilers team captain from 1992 till 1994. These accomplishments are particularly impressive considering he spent a year in jail midway through his career. By 1994, Craig MacTavish stood alone as the only player in the entire National Hockey League still skating without a helmet. With other helmetless beauties such as Randy Carlyle, Doug Wilson, Rob Langway, and Brad Marsh all retiring, he truly was the last of a dying breed. MacTavish would continue to suit up for the Oilers as the lone helmetless player until a late season trade on March 21st, 1994, that would send him to the New York Rangers for Todd Marchand. In New York, MacTavish made an impact, contributing 6 points in 12 regular season games and 5 points in 23 playoff games. His efforts would help the Rangers clinch the 1994 Stanley Cup. This victory marked the fourth and final championship of his playing career, and solidified his place in history as the last player in NHL history to hoist the Stanley Cup without wearing a helmet. Following his time with the Rangers, MacTavish joined the Philadelphia Flyers as a free agent for the 1995 season. However, he would struggle to match his previous numbers, scoring just 25 points in 100 games split over 2 seasons for the Flyers. Midway through the 1996 season, he was then traded to the St. Louis Blues, where he would finish his playing career. MacTavish would score just 8 points in 63 regular season games in his final year in the league, as Father Time often stays undefeated. And on April 20th, 1997, he played in his last NHL game, going scoreless in his only playoff appearance during the 1997 postseason, after the Blues were eliminated. Showing his love for the game was still there, following his retirement as a player, MacTavish would transition to a coaching role. MacTavish would spend 2 seasons as an assistant coach for the New York Rangers, and a year as an assistant coach for the Oilers before being promoted to head coach in Edmonton for the 2001 campaign. While he helped the Oilers make a surprise return to the finals in 2006, his coaching tenure was largely viewed as mediocre, with the team making the playoffs just 3 times in 8 seasons. MacTavish was relieved of his coaching duties in Edmonton at the conclusion of the 2009 season. After coaching, MacTavish briefly worked as a hockey commentator for TSN before returning as a coach for the AHL Chicago Wolves during the 2012 season. He would then rejoin the Oilers organization again in 2012 as a senior vice president of hockey ops, eventually becoming the general manager in 2013. He held various roles within the Oilers organization, including interim head coaching at times, vice president of hockey ops, and general manager before leaving the Oilers organization for good in 2019. Since then, MacTavish has coached in various leagues, including the KHL and the Swiss National League, as well as returning to the NHL as an assistant coach for the St. Louis Blues from 2022 till 2023. His legacy as a player and a coach is a testament to his resilience and determination to overcome his past mistakes, solidifying his spot in hockey history. Craig MacTavish made a horrible decision to drive drunk, resulting in the tragic loss of Kim Radley's life. This event forever changed her family's life and almost ruined his own. However, it was ultimately Kim's loving family that helped Craig MacTavish emerge from this tragedy as a better person and a changed man. Despite opinions on MacTavish's sentence, he paid the price and was forgiven by Radley's family. As a result, Craig MacTavish was able to redeem himself and play 17 years in the greatest league in the world. Is it fair that MacTavish went on to have a great life while Kim's life was ultimately stolen from her? No, he was a young man who made a terrible mistake, but he and Kim Radley's family did not let one mistake define who he was, because at the end of the day, most people deserve a second chance. Rest in peace, Kim Radley, and salute to her loving family for forgiving MacTavish and allowing him a second chance.
You take it? Yeah.